Okay. Good morning, everybody. I mean, it's still good morning because it's 5 to 12. We started a little bit late dealing with some issues. And so I think we could still say good morning and welcome to Sunday morning Torah and coffee. Let's say a bracha. And as soon as we finish the bracha, the blessing, we shall begin learning. So before I say the bracha and the coffee, we are going to be studying a quite well-known Mishnah, a little paragraph from the Talmud, taken specifically from Ethics of the Fathers. Some of you might be familiar with that. Some of you are not familiar with that. You know, it is a custom between Passover and the Shavuot holiday to learn Ethics of the Fathers. Some have that custom for the entire summer, continuing through the summer all the way to Rosh Hashanah. So we're going to continue to learn Ethics of the Fathers here and there, and I think this Mishnah can be applied to what is I guess you could say tearing apart the country and other social issues, as well as just broader lessons. We're learning Torah over here, and there's other lessons and beautiful lessons that we could take from this Mishnah. But first I will start with the bracha, with a blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol nihiyah bidvaro. Okay, I hope you said amen, and I hope you had some good coffee already this morning as well. So the Mishnah that we're about to learn, as I mentioned before, is a very known Mishnah. Let's get straight to it. And please tell me what you think. Give me your feedback. I'd love to hear your feedback. And I'm actually thinking to do some other part twos to some of the discussions we've had in the past. You know, last week, I think it was Sunday morning, we gave our class on unorthodox. And I clarified quite a few times that I did not see the film as I was giving my thoughts. It was just about the Satmar movement in general and my experience. There are some things I left out, just forgot to mention it. But many people, I got a lot of feedback, and many people came back to me and said, Rabbi, you have to see the series. And some people even said to me, what are you giving comments or review if you didn't even see the series? You don't see the series? So sei still, don't tell us what you think. But, it's all good and fine. So I actually started to see the series. I'll wait till I finish and decide, what further to say. There's definitely things in there that are dramatized. There are things in there which are true. There are things in there which are disturbing based on truth and which I disagree with. But stay tuned. It's not the focus of today's class. Today I'm just mentioning it because we discussed it last week, Sunday, and maybe next week when I finish watching the series, I will give some further thoughts on it. If you're interested. If you are interested, and I would like to know if you're interested. So give me a like right now or a thumbs up, whatever you want to call it, so that I'll know if I should spend time and give a further review on that. So that's up to you guys. So when you hear this part that I just said in the class, if you give me a thumbs up, I'll be able to gauge the feedback on that. Okay, so here we get to the Mishnah. The Mishnah over here is, again, as I mentioned, a known Mishnah. So let's read the Mishnah first in Hebrew, which is the holy words of our sages. And then, after that, I'll tell you the translation and some of the commentaries. Hu haya omer. He used to say. Who is the he? Who is the he over here? He is referring back to Hillel, the great, great sage, Hillel HaNasi. And he would say the following. 3 statements. Imein ani li mili, which means if I am not for myself, who will be for me? Uchashani la'atzmi, and if I'm only for myself, mo ani, what am I? I'm reading the translation. Pretty straightforward. If I'm only for myself, what am I? And if not now, Amosai, then when? If not now, when? So this is the statement of the Mishnah. It's a known Mishnah from Hillel, and just learning the Mishnah at face value, it's a beautiful Mishnah. Again, to repeat in English. If I'm not for myself, says Hillel, who will be for me? And if I'm only for myself, what am I? If not now, when? So on the simplest surface level, the Mishnah is telling us, number one, you gotta put in the effort. You gotta put in the effort. If you're not for yourself, you gotta put in the effort. No one will get it done for you. On the other hand, the Mishnah is telling us, if it's all about yourself, then what are you? Then you're nothing. And we're going to elaborate on some of this. And if not now, when? So let me go to some of the commentaries over here. I will read it. They're not long commentaries. And tell you what some of the commentary says. So this is the first commentary I'm reading here is from the Maharal. Some of you have heard of the Maharal. He's the creator of the famous Golem, of the Maharal of Prague. And the Maharal wrote many commentaries on the Torah, both on what we call the Pshat level, on the esoteric level. And the Maharal says the following. He says like this: if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? So he zokter azoy, as we say in Yiddish. I can inherit wealth from others, but I cannot attain personal perfection through the fulfillment of Torah without doing the work myself. Money, wealth, as someone once told me, he says, how did this guy deserve his, how did this guy earn and become a millionaire? So I asked, so how? So he said, simply, his father was born before him. That's how he became a millionaire. In other words, his father left him a big inheritance. So here Hillel says that money and so on, perhaps you could get from somebody else. But Torah, meaning by broader translation, Torah knowledge, mitzvahs, character refinement, becoming a better person, all that, you cannot inherit that. You maybe have a better start if you have good parents, no question about that. If you grew up in a good environment, good friends, but ultimately that's not an inheritance. You got to put in the effort. So that's what the Maharal says. It's very simple. The Mein Anili, if I don't put in the effort, it's not coming from anywhere else. That's what the Maharal says. And then he brings over here, if I myself would not rouse my heart towards loftier things, who will? Inspiration will not come from outside. I am the only one with complete control over my actions. Imenanili mili. Verstehst? So here is what the Bartanura says, the Rambam and the Bartanura. Listen to this. And if indeed I'm the only one for myself, the one who can lead my soul to whichever direction I choose, then what am I if? What more noble endeavor have I fulfilled? What have I contributed? In other words, like this. Or let me just finish this. Even if I've achieved a thing or two, what worth are they in comparison to what I must fulfill based on my potential? This is what the Rambam, the famous Maimonides, says in the Bartanura. So let me elaborate and explain. The way they understand this is they're saying, Im eina nili mili. If I'm not for myself, meaning I have the full responsibility to become who I need to become, especially spiritually. Monetarily, that perhaps you could get from other places. But to become a mensch, and to become a refined character, and to do good, that's you. And therefore, the second statement of the Mishnah, they're connected. It may not need leave. If I'm not for myself, what am I? And therefore, if you're only for yourself, then ma'ani, what am I? If my behavior was all pre-programmed, if my behavior, I remember somebody saying that you can't blame somebody for doing something wrong because their mother slammed the door in their face when they were young and abused them, and therefore you can't hold them accountable. Then you can't hold me accountable. You can't expect from me. You can't blame me. You can't expect from me. Back and forth. Hin and Tzadik goes back and forth. But now the Hillel is saying, no, that's not the case. It's all about you. You are in charge of your well-being. You're in charge of your refinement, and you're responsible for your decisions. Therefore, I could have expectations from you. And if you're not there to help others, and you're not there to make the world around about a better world, you haven't contributed, then what are you? Garnished. Because it's you. Don't blame it on someone else. This is a very important message for us and for our Kinderlachen, especially in the social unrest that's going on. as you can well understand how this is applied. I mean, I want to repeat. I repeated this in the past. This thought, but it's very apropos here to this commentary. So bear with me for those who might have heard this already. I heard this vort, I heard this saying from Rabbi Twersky, and I'll try to make it a little shorter because I've said it in the past already here on Facebook. Hello? Oh, sorry for that interruption because, I don't know, something came up on my phone. So I'm going to repeat this insight from Rabbi Twersky. When God, in Genesis, when God creates man, God says, Na'asa Adam, let us make man. That's what he says when he creates man. He doesn't say it by any other part of creation. He says, Na'asa Adam, let us make man. So what does it mean, let us make man? So Rashi there says, Rashi, the famous commentary, says that God in his humility and wanting to make the angels feel part of it, turned to the angels and said, let us make man. And there's other commentaries that explain what this means. However, comes this insight. I'm not sure where he got it from. Rabbi Twersky says a very beautiful insight. Na'asa Adam, you know who God is talking to when he says Na'asa Adam? He's talking to man himself. What does that mean? Only man, of all of creation, of all the creatures that God created, has freedom of choice. Nobody else, nothing else has freedom of choice. And man only achieves his perfection when he makes the right choices, when he acts like a man, when he acts in a way that is only there to satisfy his selfish, materialistic drive and desires, then he's no different than the animal. Then he's not a man. Then he's another living thing that's walking around, and just like an animal who basically has instinct and is programmed to want to satisfy whatever their needs are. If a man walks around and he's just living to satisfy his personal needs, then he's no different than an animal. He's not a man. Says God to man, Na'asa, let us make man, because I cannot, says God, the way I wanted it and the way I programmed it. I didn't create man in a way that he's pre-programmed. So I cannot make man by myself. Only together with you, another human being who makes the right choices and makes a decision to raise himself above and to be altruistic and make the right choices and use that tremendous trust that God gave to us and use it in a way of being a man in the proper way, then you are a man. That's why God says, Na'asa Adam. So on a similar vein, Na'asa Adam, let us make man. I hope it's clear. I don't want to elaborate because, I'm repeating this. In a similar vein says Hillel says, Im eina nili, if it's not me, if I don't make the right choices, if I don't take the responsibility, then mili, no one else will do it for me. And therefore, shani la'atzmi ma'ani, if I'm only for myself, ma'ani, what am I? The ma'ani is such a core question. It's not just, I'm myself, I'm selfish. No, ma'ani, what am I? I'm nothing. Goes both ways. Let's go a bissel weiter, and then the Mishnah says, V'im lo yachshav, and if not now, if not now, then when? So says one of the commentaries, listen to this. This is very important. I think it also is an important message for what's going on today, which at the end of the class I'll try to tie together a little bit. And I hope you're enjoying the sing-song here of the Talmudic style of learning. Says the commentary like this. What does it mean? If not now, when? So the simple meaning is, if not now, when? When? Right? I mean, it's kind of pretty simple, but that seems too simple. What is Hillel saying? Of course, if not now, when? If I don't take the initiative right now, then what's going to happen? I mean, that seems pretty clear, pretty obvious. I mean, what's the deeper insight over here? So listen to this. Says, this is also from the Rambam says, and if I do not acquire moral and idealistic traits in my youth, when will I acquire them? I will not acquire them once I grow old, since it will be difficult to change by then. Since my character traits, noble or base, will have become permanent and strong, As King Solomon says in Proverbs, teach a lad according to his way, even when he grows old, he will not depart from it. So the way the Rambam understands Hillel's statement is Vim loy achshav is actually a message to when you're in your youth and your seed or your child is in the process of growing and developing. That's the time. That is the time when you have to give him the right values, because if not, a must I win, because it's a lost opportunity. Once you get older, we all know this. How many of us change our ways? How many of us change our outlook at life? Once you become Bissel Elte, you become very fixed in your ways. I had a discussion today. I'm not sure if I should say this or not, because everything today is like such a hot potato. So if you think I shouldn't say this after I say it, you could bop me over the head. I had a discussion today, in terms of deciding social policy, and that's not social policy, a health policy here as a community, and the synagogue, and opening and closing, etc. And there's, as we all know, a lot of diverse and strong opinions. So I was consulting with a very prominent doctor regarding wearing masks, where indoors, outdoors, when you have social distancing, when you don't have social distancing, back and forth, discussion, honest discussion. And, I mentioned to him that there are some people who are very passionate about wearing masks. There are some people who are passionate against wearing masks. So he said to me the following. He says, look, people who are strongly opposed to wearing masks because of either psychological or health reasons, you could talk to them. It's very difficult for them. It's very uncomfortable for them. So you could have a discussion. You could suggest perhaps different masks. You could suggest do this, do that, whatever it is. Cloth masks versus artificial masks, whatever. Hit back and forth. But then there are people who are for and against masks for political reasons. He says to the people who are for or against for political reasons, you can't really talk to them because finished, they're fixed in their mind. There's nothing you could really say or do. Which everybody right through the phone, you could bop me on the head for this, but it's quite true, and the Mishnah says this. When it comes to those areas, people are so made up in their mind that it's very hard to change opinions. I'm not saying it's a good thing right now or a bad thing. What Hillel is telling us is take care to properly direct your child or yourself while you're in your youth. You have a much better chance of straightening out the tree, the plant, yourself at that time. And that's what he says. Now, for us who are perhaps beyond our youth, and so what's the point other than depressing us and saying, okay, Rabbi Friedman, you're an older geezer over here, old geezer, and what are you telling me this? I can't change. So I want to say the following story, because ethics of the fathers, and as I like to do Sunday morning coffee and learning is a little more relaxed, so there's no rush. There's a following story. The story is just a message the other way around. It's somewhat different than what the Mishnah is telling us, but nevertheless. There's a story told with one of the famous Ger Rebbes. Gur is one of the largest Hasidic groups. And this story is told of one of the Ger Rebbes from, maybe 100 years ago. I don't remember his name. It was either the Sar Sholem, that's from Bills. I'm not sure which Ger Rebbe. The message is a message. And he was once sitting at a gathering with his disciples, Hasidim, and so on, and having an inspirational talk. And at some point, they ran out of either wine or the l'chaim. They were saying some l'chaim. They ran out, and he was surrounded by older Hasidim. And so he turns to one of his the Hasidim sitting next to him, saying, perhaps you could see to it that some more l'chaim should be brought to the table. fine. So the guy sitting next to the Rebbe turned to his fellow and says, the Rebbe would like to have some l'chaim. And the guy sitting next passes it on to the guy next to him. This went on for a couple of minutes. At some point, the Rebbe excused himself. I gotta go out and let me see if I could go find a child that he should do it because he wasn't seeing results. So the Rebbe went out. He's going to find a child. The Rebbe was stepped out of the room. The Hasidim, they figured he's going to find one of the children, meaning one of the younger lads or whatever it is, to go ahead and arrange, one of the youth. And but 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed, 15, 20 minutes passed, and finally the Hasidim realized what happened. That the Rebbe himself went to the store or to his house to bring back some l'chaim, and they felt terrible. The Rebbe himself had to go. How terrible! When the Rebbe came back, they all apologized and they said, "Rebbe, you told us you were going out to find one of the youth. We would never allow you to go. You told us you're going out of the room." So the Rebbe responded in the following way. He says, "When I was a kid, I was growing up, I noticed that as you get older, you start becoming a little lazy, you become a little slower, less motivated, and so on, less eager to do things. So I vowed to myself that I'm always going to remain young, a kid, a child. I will never grow old, as in Peter Pan. However, as a Rebbe, it's not becoming that I should act like a child. I got to act dignified and respectful. So anytime I always leave the child in me just not too far away, so that if I need to access the child within me, I could do so. So when I told you I'm just going out for a moment to find the youth, I meant to find the youth within me, and that's what I did. I found the youth within me, and I went myself, and I got it. I got the l'chaim that was needed. So that is a sort of counter story that yes, the Rambam is saying Vim le'achshavei masai, and it means very much so that go ahead and make sure that you educate a child, and while you're young. But here's the story on the other hand, that even if some of us are a little bit starting to get a little older, there's a way of, with a little more effort, accessing the youngness, the youth within ourselves. Okay. I want to share another insight. It's not totally different, but a little bit of another line that brings us all together. Because basically now we're saying like this: it's not me, shani la'atzmi, v'im lo yachshavei masai. Which means if not I, if I'm only for myself, and if not now. But the last statement in the Mishnah, if not now, seems perhaps maybe not as connected to the others. Now, there is another commentary here. I want to mention that, and then I want to go to one more thought, and then sort of bring it all together in a sense. There is another commentary over here that says, Im ein ani li, and he says like this, that this Mishnah is also being said in the context of the teachings of Hillel in the Mishnah before this, or two Mishnahs before this, who said that you have to go out and reach as many students as you can. And in that context, he's saying the following. He says like this: the task, he says, it's important for you to go out and reach as many students as you can. And he says, if you don't do it, it will happen. Similar to what Mordechai said to Esther, that if you're not going to go to Achashverosh, what needs to happen will happen, but your responsibility that you had to do will not happen. And in that context, let me make it a little clearer. I think I'm not being clear. What God needs to be gotten done will happen, but your part and your contribution and your merit in making that happen will have been lost. So who loses? Primarily you. And that's what it means, im ein ani li mili. If I'm not for myself, who is for me? Meaning that if you're not going to do what you need to do, then the one that loses out is you. Because what needs to happen is going to happen. And even to take it one step further, im ein ani li mili, is if I'm not for myself, mili, as I just mentioned, but shani la'atzmi ma'ani, says the Rebbe, it means that if I want to be the only one teaching and guiding, but I don't inspire others to teach, then I'm not even achieving my true mission as a teacher. A true teacher wants that his students should become teachers. And in every sense, whether a teacher in the classroom, whether a teacher with your child, whether a person that you're inspiring, a real teacher wants others. So that's what Hillel is saying in the context, in continuation to his Mishnah before, where he says, you should be a student of Aharon, and you should try to bring people closer. You should try to inspire people. Im einan nili, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? But if I want to be the only one doing it, then ma'ani, then who are you? Because that means that you're not sincere, it's not for real, etc. So that's another short insight. And I want to say one more insight, which is like this. All these three things are connected. And again, the message over here, it relates to what's going on in the world today. I believe so. I mean, I think so very clearly. Im ein anili, if I'm not for myself, and if I'm only for myself, and if not now, has one underlying theme, and that is that everybody and everything and every moment that God created has its innate value. It has its indispensable value. Why so? First and foremost, and this is also related to Hillel's discussion just 2 Mishnahs before, I believe it is. Hillel said like this. I want to repeat this. Hillel said like this. Havei mitamidav shel Aharon, you should be a student of Aharon. Oyev shalom, love peace. Roidev shalom, pursue peace. Oyheves abrias, love creatures. Umekarvan latayra, and bring them close to Torah. What does it mean, love creatures, oyheves abrias? So commentaries point out, even if the only virtue they have is nothing else but that God created them, there's reason to love them. Because if God created them, that means they have innate value and purpose. So with that underlying message before, that's the underlying message to these 3 statements. Imeina ni li, if I'm not for myself, then Mili, who will be for me? If I don't realize that I have a purpose and I have a mission, God created me, I have my unique experience, I have my unique social footprint. What these are, we talk about our environmental footprint and to try to reduce it. But in terms of our social imprint, positivity imprint, we have to always try to increase. And every person has their unique imprint and responsibility. Imena nili, and if I'm not going to take that responsibility seriously, mili, who will take it for me? I'm not a spare part. I'm not just happen to be. I have my unique purpose, mission, experiences of life, positive message and influence that I could give and only I could give. And if I come to realize that, the way to gauge that, that whatever I do, whatever pursuits I have is true and real, and it's not selfish, it's not self-centered, is the second part of the Mishnah. Kshani la'atzmi mani. If I'm only for myself, what am I? In other words, if I take that same underlying principle that I am of value, not because I'm so great, because of selfish, egotistical approach, but because if God created me, I, Avremel Friedman, that means that I have a mission and purpose and I have what to give. And I have my sphere of influence that I need to bring goodness to, holiness, positivity. Then the other person has that same exact innate value. That's how you see if I'm sincere and I'm doing what I need to do, my approach to others. So then if I'm only caring about myself, and it's only about me, and it's only what I'm going to do and where I'm getting, then I missed it all. And that's why the Mishnah says, just like with, and if not now, then when? Just like with time. We all get it, we understand that one moment, that this moment, if wasted, I could never get back. I could never turn back the clock. This moment is unique. It's not the moment before, it's not the moment after. So Hillel is trying to underscore the point that so too it's with the human being. You are unique. I am unique, you're unique. Nobody else could replace what you have to do, what your purpose, what you're needed for. That's the message, the line that goes through the entire Mishnah. Is that clear? If you understand, it's always good to get some feedback. So I know, that I'm not talking to a wall over here. If you understand, if the point is clear, please give me feedback. Please give me your thumbs or your sad faces if you don't understand, so that I know what's going on over here. Great. Okay. So let me conclude. Let me conclude and tell you how this relates to what I believe is the situation out there. So I see some of you have given me your thumbs up, which I guess it means that you understood what I was talking about. And that's good. Before we get off, I'm going to see if anybody has any questions. But other than that, let me try to bring this point, because I was sitting Shabbat at home talking to our kids, and of course what comes up is what's going on in this country, and we all love this country and so on. So I'm not going to address all the issues. It's not the place here, especially not all the politics of it. And I posted one somewhat, I'm not political, but some post that regarding anti-Semitism and so on, and it was already too much, because everybody right away takes it in a given way, and my job is primarily to teach Torah and Torah's message to society and even to political issues, but not political issues, because once you get the politics, is that people are so passionate that it's an ish git. What should I tell you? So I'm not here about talking politics. I'm not telling you here you should vote for President Trump or you should vote for Biden. That not going there. However, what I do think Torah has a message for social issues. And I think this Mishnah is a very, very important Mishnah. We're dealing with some of the ills of society if they take this Mishnah seriously. If you listen to protesting, and you listen, and of course everybody has a right and even an obligation to protest if there's something that you feel is wrong. And when you see injustice done, of course you should protest. But when people protest, they quickly not everybody. It's never good to paint everybody in a broad brush. But when people protest, they can very quickly become very carried away with what I want and my needs and what is good for me, and very quickly forget about the greater good. Very quickly. So here the Mishnah is telling us, if you listen to some of the messages that are out there, and a lot of times it's about, it's about self and how I was mistreated. So the Mishnah over here is telling us in both directions. If you want something, you want improvement in your life, you want to have a better life, don't rely on anybody else. If your life is not going the way it should be going, first and foremost, do some real soul searching about yourself and what about your efforts. Or are you just sitting back and saying, I'm going to take the extreme case. You sit back, do nothing, but go ahead and loot some stores. That's the extreme case. But there's a lot of more subtle situations where I'm going to sit back and I'm going to blame my problems on somebody else. Says Hillel, if you're not for yourself, who is for you? You might be right. You might be 100% right that somebody else is mistreating you. My kid comes home from school sometimes, says my teacher's picking on me, my students, my friends. You might have to be dealt with, don't get me wrong. But ultimately, what should you tell your child? You tell your child, you do the best you can. You put in all the effort that you need to do. If you're not going to put your effort in, nobody's going to do it for you. That's the reality. On the other hand, the second statement is why the Mishnah, the Hillel, it's so brilliant. On the other hand, that could very quickly lead, I'm only for myself, and I don't care about someone else, and I don't care about somebody's plight, and I don't care about mistreating somebody. I don't care about embarrassing, insulting, putting down, treating someone as a second-class citizen. not paying attention to someone else's need, someone who's poor. So the Hillel goes, it says straight back, if you're only going to think about yourself and say, well, it's not my problem that there is ills in society and that people are being mistreated, that there is people being hurt, sometimes even by authority figures when they overstep their line in a horrific way. I mean, these again are extreme examples, but there's more subtle examples. We all have it in our life where we sometimes see injustices and say, it's not my problem. No, says Hillel, no, it is your problem. So in both directions. If you have problems and you're going to try to fix your problems by blaming it on somebody else, it's not going anywhere, says Hillel. And if you're only going to care about yourself and not going to try to fix the problems, so what are you? So this is the two sides of the Mishnah. It's very, very important. I think it has a very important message for what's going on today. And that's that. That's the thought today. That's the Mishnah. Everything is in Torah because the Torah is the blueprint of how God created the world. So you could find the answer to everything in Torah. So I want to give a look if anybody over here had any questions. If there's any questions, I will just give a look quickly. I don't see any questions. If anybody has a question, you could look, but I don't see any questions. So I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for listening. Please share with whoever you. Torah is good to share, as we just said. I don't want to be the only teacher. I want you to be a teacher and spread good to your footprint, to your social footprint, to your social sphere, and so on. So everybody have a fantastic day. Thank you for listening. Sei gesund. All the best.